I wanted to take a small part of my CU conference presentation to touch a little bit on how I have been applying free work as part of my Control Unleashed patterns. Now, free work is part of ACE, which is Animal Centered Education, that's pioneered by Sarah Fisher, and a Google search can bring you to her website and you can gain more information on that. But essentially, what I love about ACE is the concept of free work, which is using enrichment activities to help our dogs emotionally and physically. So we're essentially adjusting how we are enriching our dogs in a way that's going to be most comfortable for them. And by doing that, by comfortable, I mean physically, by doing that, we're also going to have them be more comfortable emotionally. And my goal is to help make my patterns for my dogs as comfortably, emotionally and physically as I possibly can, because we want our patterns to help our dogs feel better in the world, and the more comfortable we can make them, the better. And I also find that enrichment in general, whether it's snuffling or licking or even chewing, is very, very good for helping to bring our dog's arousal down. So really incorporating free work into Control Unleashed just makes a lot of sense to me. So discomfort and pain for your dog. And this can be, this doesn't mean your dog is particularly in horrible pain, but it could just be tension, muscle tension. It could be some stress on somewhere on their body. It could be pain. It could be soreness from an injury, or it could just be something structurally that they've had their entire lives. So things I look for in my patterns that tells me that my dog is potentially uncomfortable is if they step forward or backwards during a loop to adjust their ability to orient to my face or give me eye contact. So let's say for up down, I place a treat on the ground, my dog eats it and then takes a step back to look up at me. That's going to give me information that something within that setup is slightly uncomfortable for them. I'm looking for a change in their top line. So in this picture of Sunday as a baby puppy, her top line is nice and straight. Her hips are a little higher than her shoulders, but quite frankly, that was just because at that age, her back legs, her rear had grown a little bit more quickly than her front. But I'm looking for a straight top line versus concave or convex. Now, when our dog reaches to the ground to eat a treat or even reaches lower, we are going to see a change in their top line, but I don't want it to be a significant change. An increase in arousal can be a sign of pain or discomfort. And I'm not going to go into that too much other than if we are in pain and then we are put in a scenario where things become challenging for us, that pain or discomfort is going to make it harder for us to be able to handle that situation, and arousal can go up, or our dog can stress down. And then finally, disengagement. So if my dog is disengaging from my patterns, why is that happening? Is it simply because the environment is too challenging, or is it because there's some level of discomfort? So basically, we can make some height and distance adjustments that's going to help our dogs. That's, I would say, the easiest way to apply these concepts into our free work, into our CU patterns, though there's many more that I just won't have time to touch on with this. So this is an example of a free work session for Jane. So basically, I have a number of different snuffle mats and lick opportunities at different heights, at different angles, in different locations. So what I'm looking for here is, one, what does my dog prefer? So does Jane tend to go to lick mats more than snuffle mats, or is it the other way around? Does Jane prefer something angled versus something, on a flat surface? Does she prefer something up high versus something down low? So I can use my free work sessions to get a sense of what Jane's preferences are, because she's naturally going to go first to where it's most comfortable and reinforcing for her. And that can give me a lot of information. And now this is an example of using this at home. This is my snuffle room. Yes, I have a snuffle room. And basically I have this set up at all times, and I'll just fill it as needed. Here you can see I have a lot of Kato boards and stools in front of the snuffle mats, which are on the couch. I found that with Jane, putting her front feet up onto something was preferable for her, so I try to set up her sessions in a way that allows her to do that. This is me using some free work for up-down. So this is how we can start to apply these concepts into our control unleashed patterns. So here, the first reps, I'm playing around with distance. So here, I'm furthest away from Jane, and you can see that she doesn't have to move backwards or forwards in order to give me eye contact. Now here, I stepped a little bit closer, and you can see a strain in her neck, and then she actually took a step back, letting me know that that was too challenging for her. And then with this, I'm adjusting my height of my up-down game. So Jane, here you can see, as opposed to the flat surface on the ground, she doesn't have to move her neck quite as much in order to get the food, and here, even less so. So I like the fluid motion of, like, if you watch the hair under her belly, it kind of moves fluidly. It's not very stiff. Her tail is nice and soft. These are things that are telling me that this is most comfortable for her. And then this is an example of me using a lick stick. Leslie McDevitt created a lick and learn, which can be used in the same way. So I'm playing the up-down game, and simply when she stops licking and gives me eye contact, that's her saying she's ready for the next rep. And you can see this is not putting any strain on her body. I love that she softens her eyes and puts her ears back when she's licking. So I can see that it's building relaxation for her. And also, as someone who had significant neck and back issues, this was very comfortable for me to play versus putting the treat on the ground. This is an example. So my miniature poodle has intervertebral disc disease. So I was looking for ways to get him more comfortable when playing patterns. So this is an example of him playing Super Bowls with just a flat target on the ground. So he's got to put a lot of effort to lower his head to get that treat. And then you see he adjusts his body in order to give me eye contact. Now here, I don't see that adjustment after eating the treat and looking up at me. He's just comfortable looking up from where he is. And then you can see there's significant less impact on his neck in order to get that food. So what you can see is when we've got still shots here, when we have the flat target, his neck is significantly more raised and back in order to orient to me versus with the snuffle mats. And this is also an example of how distance can help. So I'm also much closer to him, and I think that's part of the problem here. But then if you look at his tail is much higher with the flat targets than it is with the snuffle mats. So this is an example of how discomfort can increase arousal. And then if we look at him eating the treat, we've got him, his tail's higher, but also you can see that significant impact of his neck and back and the way he has to adjust where his toes are in line with his shoulders in order to eat those treats. Let me see if I can go back. Sorry. There we go. Whereas with the snuffle mat, he's almost in line with his back here. And you can see his toes are nearly underneath his shoulders and then a lower tail. So significantly more comfortable for him. This is an example of voluntary 1, 2, 3 in the classroom setting. This dog has quite a lot of health and structural issues, and he was backing up a lot when he was looking up at his owner. So Nicole adjusted the setup to raise the targets onto chairs, and that made things much more comfortable for him. This is an example of Sunday playing, giving me a chin rest to play voluntary sharing. So that's her start button. I find that with a chin rest, if my dog doesn't have to lower their head quite so much to offer their start button, they're going to be more likely to do it because it's more comfortable. So one trick that I've always wanted to teach Jane was putting her chin flat on the ground. I think it makes for adorable pictures. I really struggled getting her to do that, and then finally I realized that it probably was just uncomfortable because she offers a chin rest all the time. So looking at these, that's an example of my dog wasn't performing the behavior. I wasn't able to teach the skill, rather than saying, well, my dog just can't learn it. Why is my dog not able to learn it? I think latte is probably the easiest way to incorporate free work into your control and leash skills. Rather than having stations on the ground, you can simply raise them. So here, Jane was playing latte because I had my flock of chickens and ducks and turkeys and such loose, and they can be triggering for Jane. Now, if eating treats on the ground was uncomfortable for Jane, if it created tension, if it created pain, whatever it might be, and then she's working around a trigger, then that pain is going to increase her reaction to the trigger and make it harder for her to work around it. Whereas here, I'm providing a comfortable way for her to take food reinforcements, and therefore she's able to handle her, potential trigger much better. And then finally, this is an example of how I've incorporated free work into my classroom settings for CU. So the first part of this video, we're just trying things out to see what the dogs prefer. And now we're using their preferences to play CU patterns. So here's a dog using a snuffle to play up down. We've got some ping pong with snuffle mats here. That's adding comfort plus the benefit of enrichment. And then finally, some up down raised lick mat for this dog. So that's a very quick overview of how I incorporate using free work to improve my reinforcement strategies when I'm building my control unleashed patterns, which will therefore make the patterns more comfortable and durable for both you and your dogs.